All right, everybody, welcome back to episode number 2 of Health Care Uncut, Unfiltered. It's been kind of a hot minute since we've been together. We've had some crazy weather. We've had school being out. We've had trips to the Bourbon Trail. We've had a lot of things go on since we were last together on air, and I just am excited to be back with Brandon and Alex. Look forward to breaking into some really good self-funding healthcare topics that are very, very cost containment and population health sensitive. Anything new happened with you guys while we weren't talking healthcare on a podcast?
Oh, I don't know about anything too exciting. I love this new setup though. We've upgraded to kind of a kitchen table atmosphere, which is much more comfortable. I like it.
Believe it or not, this is actually my kitchen table.
Really?
Oh,
Yeah,
that's funny.
This is my one of my best friends built it, gave it to us, and we decided it would be better served up here. It was at the house for 5 years, so this table's got a lot of love and a lot of memories already.
It's well made. My dad always said the heavier the furniture, the more it should cost. So I would
this
imagine this
thing
is
is
a
heavy.
really expensive table.
It's very heavy. It's very heavy.
Well built. No, I love it though.
We had the last episode. I've been listening to it. I showed many people who had no idea many things about
Sure.
healthcare, or we're all just, we feel like innocent bystanders, but we can't act like bystanders is what we've learned through some of these things we've learned. We have to actually participate. Otherwise, we're going to get screwed in every way, shape, and form. And I wanted to just start and ask, what is it, all the things we talked about in the first episode, and that we will continue to talk about, what would you say to somebody who's trying to take advantage of understanding how to navigate their healthcare journey, and what are the best tools that they can take that you guys provide at your specific, jobs or
Yeah.
what is it? How do we actually make sure we're doing the right stuff?
Well, it's a heck of a question, and what I think I hear you say is, how do I buy this? How do I get this and employ it and utilize it to the advantage of my employees and my plan bottom line?
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, it's a cool question. There's a lot to it. There's a lot to unpack as it relates to that, and we can get into a lot of that, and we may pause and pump the brakes. But, I'll start off and say, Brandon, right away, there's many different ways to accomplish what we want to accomplish. And what we're talking about is, how does what we're doing look for an employer, and how does he access this for his employees? And the first place that you would think to look, and I'll jump in at any moment, but the first place you think to look is their broker, is the person that they consult with to say, hey, look, we need insurance. I need to make sure my employees are covered and they're able to be healthy, productive employees. I need to be able to attract and retain employees. And oftentimes in our job markets that we're in today's day and age, the benefit package is largely considered a big portion of the compensation. And so at the end of the day, the guys that are helping the employers make the decision, and in our world, they're called brokers. I hate the term brokers. You know why I hate the term brokers? Because it implies that I'm going to talk to someone else, make a deal with them so that they can sell something to you. To me, that's a middleman. I don't think we need middlemen. I think this landscape's full of middlemen, and that's a big problem in this landscape. But quite frankly and quite truly, I prefer the term advisor or consultant. And so if you've got somebody that works with you and they're consulting with you, your mindset is that they're helping you do the best that they possibly can for you. A broker's out there negotiating deals for you, when a consultant is actually looking at the way your operation runs and saying, here are the best moves to make, here are the best levers to pull. And to me, you first, as an employer, Brandon, have to determine whether you have a broker or you have a consultant working for you. And one real and true way to determine that is ask the broker how he gets paid. Because if that guy is working truly for you, he's really only getting paid by you. But the vast majority of the brokers out there work for you, but they get paid by the BUCAs. We talked about the BUCAs, Blue, United, Cigna, Aetna. He's getting paid by someone else. So you're paying him a percentage of the premium, and then Blue Cross and Blue Shield is paying him for an override or retention bonus or something along those lines, he's serving two masters. So if you want somebody that's going to employ the strategies that we talk about, Alex, you want a guy who's only getting paid by you. And so the first step is to find out who's really helping you make your healthcare decisions.
That's a good thing to get to the heart of it. How they get paid is important. Your loyalty lies with where your paycheck comes from, or at least most of the time. I do want to clarify, though, broker's not a bad word. Advisor's probably a better word. But if you get deep enough into the free market medicine world, the direct healthcare world, you'll hear some people that cannot stand brokers. They talk about them in very derogatory terms. I don't tend to do that. I think brokers are necessary. I think the better way to approach it is whoever you're working with, do they bring value of some sort? And brokers, in my experience, definitely do that. So it's also keep in mind, they're not just bringing you your health plan. They handle, COBRA plans, 401k, case management, all kind. Mark can talk to this better than
voluntary
I can.
benefits, long-term disability, short-term disability.
It's deeper than just choose your health plan. How does your broker pick it? That kind of stuff. Like, there's a value in having a partner that brings all of these products to the table for your company and hopefully is thinking about you to save you money. But for you to do that as an employer, as a business owner, as an HR manager on your own would essentially mean you're going to hire somebody else to work in your company to do it for you, which some places do. So I want to be clear that we're not here to attack brokers at all. I'm sitting across from one. I think brokers are wonderful if they do it the right way.
Well, and that's a absolutely fair point. Brokers get slammed a little bit, especially in the area we live in, where it's the nexus of the Free Market Medical Association. And the vast majority of the guys that sell health insurance, health care for employers here are very well kept by carriers. There's a few of us out there that consider ourselves not brokers, but consultants or advisors. But at the end of the day, the broker term is a general term that is used to identify the person that is negotiating your healthcare benefits. So you got to talk to that person. The second thing I would tell you is the employer, you, Brandon, say it's your company, and you're wanting to, you've listened to our podcast and you're like, oh my gosh, that sounds great. How do I do this? You got to get a mirror out. And at the end of the day, you've got to get a mirror out and you got to stand there and you got to stare at that mirror and you got to look at yourself and you got to say, am I bottom line focused or am I population health focused? And you don't have to be one or the other. There's a delicate balance between bottom line and population health. And the vast majority of people that are even considering looking at an employee health care plan that's different than what they got are looking at price. They're facing year in and year out 12, 15, 17, 20% renewal costs, meaning they pay their premium for a full year and they add up all their receipts and they determine, the carrier determines that these guys ran hot or they had a lot of claims. In order for us to win on this, we've got to raise their price. Number one, the cost of healthcare goes up every year, period, end of story, and it's a like cost of living. Number two, if you ran hot and had a lot of claims, you had 10 surgeries and 8 ER visits and just ran hot, a NICU birth, these carriers are like Vegas. They're built on losers, right? Vegas wasn't built on winners. They're built on people that are sick. They make more money when you're sick. At the end of the day, it's not health care, it's sick care. And so they up your price, but they up the money. They build in themselves a raise. They give you an increase based off of how your claims ran. Now, you can have a year where you pay $100,000 or you pay $1 million in premium, but you add up all your health care receipts at the end of the year and you only spend $750,000. Well, there's a $250,000 delta. There's $250K out there that went to somebody. Where'd it go? In a fully insured world, it went to the carrier. Whereas the way Alex and I talk about doing this, we want our people, our clients, our customers to only pay for the health care that they use, whereas the typical broker makes a crap ton of money off of this carrier to keep you in this Blue Cross and Blue Shield world, in this BUCA world. I need to stop saying Blue Cross Blue Shield, in this BUCA world, because they all do it. And so it's just determining how you want to approach your health care. Are you looking cost? Because if you're looking cost, we can make some changes for you and help you out. But if you're looking population health with a balance of cost, then you have some really cool levers and buttons that you can pull that can run the cost of your healthcare down, and you don't pay for a penny more than the healthcare that you actually consume throughout the plan year. Does that make sense?
How would you describe population health in that? We use those two mindsets, cost or population health. How would you explain population health if you had to break it down?
One of my clients I left today, it's a great question. I love where you're at. One of my clients that I left today, we built her plan from the ground up, and at some point I want to have her on here. She's an amazing mind when it comes to designing an employee benefits plan. And when I say population health, Brandon, what I mean by that is the plan designed for your employees to be able to easily access care in a way where it takes less money out of their pocket on a day-to-day basis? From the standpoint of I twist my knee at work, and I'm afraid to go get it looked at, because I might have to fill my deductible, and I might have to get an MRI, and I might have to do this, and I'm afraid of all. I have a fear of medical debt piling up if I go to the doctor and I have to have all this work done. And so population health, I say, is a plan that's designed for the employee to understand easily and have no fear of going to be well, going to the doctor in the hospital or the ER. We talked about an ER visit.
Right.
Going to those places to be well and having no fear of accumulating a bunch of healthcare debt. You insulate your employees from accumulating a ton of healthcare debt from very simple things that they have to have taken care of.
Yeah, I mean, in a simple way, you could say, is it bottom line focused or employee focused? So then by that, I mean, you could, in theory, nobody does it anymore, but you could buy, they call them Cadillac plans, or they used to anyway, the top of the line, best health plan ever made, and you pay for it 100% as the employer, and your employees don't pay for anything. I mean, that would be the top of population health focus.
They're all labeled after precious metals now.
It's like
platinum, gold, silver, and bronze.
And that used to actually happen.
It's like empathy. It's like you care about your employees and you want to treat them well. Your mindset is like, because you can't have both, right? Always. It's got to be either cost efficient, or it's like, no, we're putting the needle this way, and we're going to give our employees the most.
You can't have both.
Well, and that's
the thing. I would imagine most people that find out that they can have both were probably coming from a cost-effective stance at first. Is that right?
That's where the paradigm shift occurs.
Right.
Yes.
Well, and a lot of times it not only comes from, it's not just a cost savings approach. It's, I can't afford this anymore. I can't provide my employees health insurance anymore. This is too much. And unfortunately, it doesn't, the system's gone that way, and I don't really know the answer why. I mean, I'm old enough to remember getting my first job at a large corporation, and my healthcare was covered. I mean, I think I had a $250 deductible or something. What has changed so dramatically in the last 20 years to now, high deductible health plan is a term in the industry that comes along with laws about it and everything else, because that's a thing now where you're pushing so much onto the employee, because honestly you have to, because you can't afford to stay afloat as a company, whether you're large or small, and continue to pay the prices that just go up year after year after year. And so really that's where free market medicine was born of. Somebody came along and said, wait a second, we can provide this care. And it was providers that started this movement, as far as I know. They said, I can provide this care at
surgeons
at a much lower cost. And why am I messing with sending all this stuff to insurance companies and trying to get paid and fighting and denials and all that. I know what I want to make as a provider when I do this surgery or I see this patient. What if I could just charge somebody that and they'd pay it? And it's much less than what they're paying now. Surely they would want to do that. And it really just came out of a need almost. I see it as where companies are getting strapped with increases every year. Employees are getting more of the burden every year, and everybody's frustrated. And so this movement's born because it's like we can do something about this. And I think what Mark's getting into here is this new system, which is really an old system,
right?
Is sort of getting a rebirth, and it's working. And so you can have both now. It's kind of a hybrid of both. You have to still live in the traditional world, but you add this new piece in, and you kind of add some of that population health back in that has been missing from a lot of employer plans.
The graph that comes to my mind, and I've drawn it very poorly right here, the graph that comes to my mind that I've seen it at some point, we'll get it up and we'll get it on video, Brandon, and show people what we're talking about. But what I've written here is wages versus gross domestic product, and healthcare costs. And wages have done this. They've gone up consistently every year, cost of living 3-6%. And then gross daily product is out-tracked wages in what it's increased. So we're not able, with our wage increase, to be able to pay for our gross domestic product. But healthcare, you put that on there, and it far outpaces the standard rise of wages and gross domestic product. So this delta, this gap right here, is what our system is designed to bridge. And when you talk about a standard traditional healthcare plan, that's what this line represents. And whenever you talk about a non-traditional healthcare plan, that line falls somewhere right in here. So it helps bridge the gap and the delta between the money we make and the money we spend versus what healthcare has how healthcare has an impact on that. So that is why people are afraid to go to the doctor. That's why people are afraid to go hear that they need an MRI. They have a fear of trying to accomplish this. And the problem is trying to accomplish this. The problem is healthcare is so convoluted, traditional healthcare is so convoluted and so difficult to navigate that they just don't go get a doctor. They know where care exists. You know where care exists. If I broke my arm tomorrow and had a bone sticking out, where would I go? The emergency room. People get a sore throat now, and they don't understand their health care, and they're afraid of what the cost of it's going to be. They go to the emergency room for a sniffle or a sore throat or whatever, and they don't understand. They think that's a $250 visit, and that's what a healthcare emergency room copay is, typically $250 to $500, and they think, well, that's all I'm paying. That's all anybody's paying. Well, they see the EOB on the back end, and that's an $8,000 visit, and the plan pays that. And that's why people's increases on their traditional insurance are 15, 17, 21, 22%. It's because Blue Cross and Blue Shield is saying, hey, look, we know you got your health care. We don't care where you got it. We're just going to keep charging you more. They build in raises for the broker. They build in, raises for themselves. And it just isn't it's not a sustainable system. We can't keep doing this. And that's why the birth of this movement has happened. They've seen that delta not get closed. It's growing wider and wider. And we have to figure out ways to do it. And that's how you do it. And it starts, like you asked, with your broker. It starts with talking to that guy and find out where his incentives are. Who's he incentivized by to do things? Is he incentivized by the employee? Because at the end of the day, I want to work for my client. That's all I want to work for. I only want to work for my client, period. End of story. I had a guy approach me the other day and say, Mark, if you'll just employ my wellness program, I'll put money in your pocket. I go, okay, I appreciate that. It's very nice. But if you can give that money to me, can you give it to my client? He goes, what do you mean? I go, Mike, I only work for one person at a time. I only work for one client at a time. And if I start to take money for you, then all of a sudden I'm working for you too, aren't I? And he goes, oh, yeah, absolutely. I go, so if you can give me that money, can you help me lower my employer's cost, and pass that money directly onto their bottom line? He goes, nobody's ever asked me that before. If your broker's getting paid somewhere else, he's just a broker. If your broker is only paid by you, he's a consultant and advisor, and he's the guy, whether you have this plan in place or not, that will listen to you about putting a cost-containing, population health conscious plan in place for your employees.
Well, and maybe speak a little bit about, we touched on it earlier, of how brokers get paid, but the incentives that the BUCAs provide for a broker or a brokerage firm, I should say, to, let's say, only use their product. So we do talk about Blue Cross Blue Shield a lot, partially because they are the largest insurer in this state.
In Oklahoma, for sure.
And they're very familiar to most of us. They can go to a brokerage and say, hey, sell our product. And then the brokers start selling it. And then what happens is there's things that I don't completely understand, and Mark can speak to, but there's overrides, there's bonuses, meaning if there's a certain level of business, you get an extra bonus. And then if there's a level above that, you get another bonus. And then combine those three levels and you get kickers and all kinds of things. And so all of a sudden you fast forward, say, 4 or 5 years of a brokerage firm, and they are rolling in Blue Cross plans, and something like this comes along and you say, hey, what about doing this that would save your clients money? They're not going to disagree with that. They're not going to deny that. They might do some mental gymnastics to justify why that doesn't make sense for their client. But at the end of the day, the reason is, if I start pulling clients away from that traditional Blue Cross plan, or whatever the plan is that provides them their incentives, they're going to lose money. And I don't fault them for that. I mean, this is a world that we're about making money when you open a business. It's why we're even talking about this. As a business owner, you want to lower your health care costs so you can make more profit. It's the same with a brokerage firm. But Mark's right in the fact that they're not working for you at that point. They're working for themselves. They're not picking the best plan for you. They're picking a good plan for you with the best incentive for them. Is that fair?
No, it's a 1,000,000,000% fair. And quite honestly, we got a Super Bowl coming up on Sunday. And I had never, till I started working at the company I work at now, never been to an NFL football game. Never been. Always wanted to go, never had been to one. But a large carrier swoops in to my company, and they want me to start selling a lot more of their business. You know where they took me? Took me to SoFi Stadium for the first football game with the Dallas Cowboys and the San Diego Chargers. All expense paid. We flew on the Dallas Cowboy charter plane. We got close to everything you can imagine getting close to at SoFi Stadium, and it was one of the coolest trips I've ever been on.
That's the new $1 billion stadium.
Yes,
right? Yeah.
yes. It's got that. Oh, it's incredible. It's insane. It was a great trip. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed going. But I haven't sold another penny of United, of that carrier's business, because it doesn't fit my philosophical viewpoint of how healthcare should be delivered. But that's my point in saying, how does the broker get paid? So the vast majority of these guys that are selling the BUCAs, the United, Cignas, Aetnas, and the world out there, they're getting these trips. If you sell enough of it, you can become a top-tier broker, and you get preferential treatment on your quotes, turnaround time. You get access to benefit admin systems for free, that stuff that they normally charge for. They do create crazy incentives. If you've got a 7 or 98% retention rate every year, meaning your clients renew with the BUCA, they give you bonuses based off of your retention rate. And these bonuses, if a firm is worth their salt, get passed down to the guy's book that his clients reside in that are utilizing the carrier plans. There are many, many ways. I go to a really, really nice golf tournament every year at a really, really nice golf course up there in Stillwater. All expense paid by a big carrier, because they want me to sell more. And I've got carrier business. I do. The BUCAs work in some certain instances. You got to have them. it's hard to self-fund a plan with a hemophiliac on it. It's hard to self-fund a plan that's got a bunch of potential babies that could be problem pregnancies, and you've got a small group. You can't finance risk. You can't finance that much risk in the size of a group that some of these things occur on. So there's a need out there for these guys. So it isn't my intent to bash them. My intent with my explanation here is to say, if you've got just a normal group and you're tired of increases and you see your health care outpacing your wages and you want to do something about it, you have options. And the vast majority of the guys that are doing this don't tell you there are options because it doesn't get them that retention. It takes away from that retention bonus. It may take that trip off the table. They may not be a top-tier broker that allows their quotes to go out quicker. They may not. There are so many tentacles with which they can grab you and keep you and try to keep you selling their product. But if you want to do it the right way and you care about your employees and you do care about your bottom line and you're not afraid to approach it differently, and you want your employees to learn to become more of a consumer of the product and not a system user, this is how you do it. You make your broker uncomfortable. And you say, why haven't you shown me this? Why haven't we talked about any of this? Is this available? Do you know how to do this? If your broker responds to you in a positive way, you got something. If your broker doesn't respond to you in a positive way, fire him. If you want this. I'm dead serious.
Well, and here's the thing, too. Brokers might not know about this. They might have heard of it or, but they've never placed it. They've never looked into it. They've never been offered to be shown a plan that uses it. And that could be because they're at a big firm and the firm trained them and they sell how they sell and they're happy and they've got a nice little life and they've never thought about it. So it's not always some nefarious reason why they don't show you the plans that would be best for you. But once you bring it up and you know about it, then there is a moment to act. And here's another thing I'll give everyone out there some advice, because this happens, I think, more often than not. You probably chose your broker because it's your brother-in-law or your cousin.
Or they coach your kid in basketball.
Or your trusted advisor that works with you.
Go to church with them.
Recommended them. Right. It's a very familiar person. It's a friendly, it's an easy thing to help somebody out that they're going to make a little money. You need it anyway. But I'll say this. Your healthcare expense is probably in your top 5 expenses of your company. Is it really worth just using a casual relationship to pick one of the most expensive things in your company? It's not to say that choice is wrong, but if you just kind of leave it up to whoever you chose that you're buddies with, you play golf with every once in a while, and you're not really looking into, is there another way to do it?
How's he getting paid?
And they're not looking into, is there another way to do it? That seems a little irresponsible as a business owner. But it's how it works. I mean, it's how it usually is done. The good news is that there is a different way to do it, and any broker, can figure out a way to learn about this, to implement it, to implement pieces into your plan. And Mark's right. If they're unwilling to do that, if they don't respond well, if they act like it's not possible, or if they say that doesn't work and it doesn't save money, fire them. Absolutely.
Yeah. You guys like beer? You like local craft beer?
I don't mind a beer.
I love local craft. I'm a whiskey guy. I'm not going to lie about this, but I like a good local craft beer. And I've got a craft brewer as a client in my portfolio. These guys are amazing. They're wonderful guys. They were with a broker before me. They went a year without insurance because they just couldn't stand the way their broker was handling them. And this broker, and they're a 7 life group. They're little, but they are significant. They pay still. They're check cashes. But their broker would go see them, get them set up, and then never set foot back in there again until renewal time. And they were very important to them during renewal time. But the rest of the year, they weren't. And which I'm not saying you got to go in and be, unicorns farting butterflies with everybody. I'm saying that this broker only showed them one way. And when I found out that they were looking again and they were looking for an out-of-the-box approach, I went to him and talked to him and sat down with him and said, we can do that again. We can do that high deductible health plan, but if you're going to do it with me, we're going to have an HSA eligible plan, and we're going to set everybody up with an HSA, and then you guys are going to contribute $69 a month to their HSA so these guys can all buy a direct primary care doctor. And we're going to utilize reference-based pricing. 7 lives, 7 employees. People out there think I'm nuts. I think it's crazy, but it can be done. It's being done. I did it. And we've got them on a reference-based pricing model. They've got the ability to access groups like Connect Benefit, like you guys have with your benefit plan, Alex. These guys have been doing this for 2 years, and they've got a half a year's worth of premium in the bank right now. They have paid on this enough. I've taught them, don't go to the ER. And I go in and I see them and I drink beer with them and we have a good time. And they're good guys. They're wonderful human beings. Evan Smith, awesome guy. Him and his brother Zach started this organization. It's called Vanessa House. They have seen the light. They all have a direct primary care doctor. None of them go to the ER. They go to their doctor first. If you go to the direct primary care doctor, everything that happens in that doctor's office doesn't become a claim. How do you lower your healthcare spend? You eliminate claims. You don't have claims anymore. You put your employees in a position to consume healthcare where it doesn't become a claim. If you're a good broker and you see that, no other broker in Oklahoma would look at this 7 life group and say, these guys need to be self-funded. They're all under 29 years old. They're all healthy. They all have a good history health-wise. They didn't have anybody with any kind of predisposition for colon cancer or anything like that. So I said, guys, there's a way to do this differently. We can do the Blue Cross and Blue Shield thing. We can go that route. But if we go this route, if you stay underneath the amount of premium you spend for the year, you keep that money. Their flagship beer is called 401k, and it's a cream ale. It's a great beer. And after the first year, Evan calls me up and he goes, we got this check. I go, yeah, it's what's left of your premium for the year. And he goes, what can we do with this? I go, dude, you can't go start another beer. You got to put it back into your health plan or your company. And he goes, can I start a 401k? And I go, depends on what you're talking about when you say 401k. If you're talking about the beer, no. If you're talking about actually doing a 401k for your guys, yeah, they all have 401ks now. Not many brewers out there that work for guys that work at breweries have a 401k plan, and these guys do. All because they buy their health care in a more consumer-focused way.
It's crazy to me. I mean, I'm sitting here listening to all this, and I'm learning as I'm listening a lot, and I have so many questions that keep coming up, and I feel like as I listen more, they just get answered more and more. I'm like, oh, okay. But the thing that I've identified that'll probably be something we talk about in a later episode is 100% education. There has got to be an enormous amount of education to the people who have already bought into this idea, because I can tell you we've been educated where I work through Alex and through different literature that goes around. And you've contacted me before about helping provide materials to educate, but I guess I never knew the importance of what education was for the health plan. I mean, there should be monthly meetings on this in some of these big corporations where they talk about, hey, this is how we get the most out of it. It's not that this is how we get the least amount of dollars spent. This is how we get the most out of the plan that we currently purchase.
Right. I think there's a fear out there with employers talking to their employees about the health plan as if they're going to force them to go somewhere they don't want to, or choose the doctor they don't want.
They'll see their HIPAA data, their health HPHI.
That too. I think it's sort of a misnomer though, because the more you talk to your employees about the options they have and the plan you've set up for them and where they can go and how they can better utilize the system, that there is this provider near their house, and it's, you know, there's all kinds of, it becomes a benefit to the employee. So you're almost, you know, shooting yourself in the foot by not training and educating your employees, because at the end of the day, the employees want really good options in their health care.
Come on.
Yeah.
You know, instead they feel overwhelmed and where do I go? And, you know, employees are not sick typically when the plan renews and they sign up for their plan. You know, it's October, November, at the end of the year, pick your plan for next year. Okay, cool. Which one? Oh, this deductible seems this, that.
Oh, they're not planning to be
Couple,
sick.
2 or 3 choices, but then 6 months later, something happens, whether it's minor or major. They immediately panic and have to figure out all this stuff all at once, but they're doing it in distress. Like you mentioned on the first episode, I believe, about just not knowing where to go, and you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. And then the next time you're choosing, do I even go at all? Is it because it's going to cost me so much?
Yeah.
So I think employers that educate their employees are losing the opportunity to implement a plan that saves them money, but they're also losing the opportunity to give their employees a benefit, especially in these plans where if they go to certain places, the employees pay zero out of pocket. So the employees get a raise if they use the system correctly. It's a wonderful thing. But, at the end of the day, you're right. Education has to happen. And we've kind of all just floated along as if there's nothing we can do and everybody kind of knows how it works. And the reality is there's a lot we can do and most people don't know how it works.
The biggest problem we're talking about, and I'm glad you brought up education, and we'll break into that in another episode, but the thing that a lot of people won't address is even the BUCA plan needs more education.
Oh, yeah.
Even that plan, and they don't do it because it behooves them for you to be sick. It's sick care, and that's why I love the name of our podcast, because we want every employer out there to have true health care. And Evan Smith, I'll give you a little anecdote from him, and then I'll put a bow on this. But he called me one time. I told those guys I did this. I went every month to their office. I say office, it's a brewery, and we had beers, and I talked to them about what they should do on the healthcare space. I said, guys, do not go to the ER unless you're squirting blood or you're on fire. Otherwise, don't go, period. The ER is not where you're going to win. Never go to the ER. Well, Evan calls me 2 months later after we have this conversation, and he goes, Mark, I screwed up. I said, what'd you do? Did you drink too much beer? Surprise, He goes, no, I was cutting some chicken at home, and I sliced my finger open. I said, okay. Did you get fixed? You go to your doctor? No, I went to the ER. Oh, you idiot. What are you doing? I told you not to go to the ER. And he goes, I know. He goes, I'm going to bite the bullet on this one, but we're going to use this as an education moment. I go, so I get to make fun of you next time we're there? He's like, absolutely. He goes, my guys won't go to the ER. I've already shown them what I shouldn't do, because he got an EOB on that, and he went back and showed him. He goes, this is the wrong place to go. But what's funny about it is he went to ER, and they still got money back. They were so good at learning and managing and understanding. If you show them, they'll do it, and they'll realize that there's a more open access to care, and it's easier to get to, and you don't have to worry about it. And what ends up happening is there's a high use for 4 or 5 months because there's pent-up need. They've been afraid to go to the doctor for so long. Well, these guys had some pent-up need that they needed to go see. One guy needed to get examined for, I think we needed a vasectomy. I don't know what it was, but he had to go to the doctor, and he was like all in my business about when can I go? But once that pent-up need's done, every time I go in there, these guys are pumped. They're happy. They're healthy. It's a better place for them to work when they're healthy, and they enjoy working there more. And so it just makes me happy to see these guys understand what health care means versus sick care.
So you sat around and drank beer with these guys and educated, which needs to happen in more places.
Sure.
But because of that, I would imagine it gave you the idea to maybe sit around and drink bourbon and educate, which is what we're currently doing now. If you don't know, we've got some bourbon on the table as well, which is what we did on the first episode also. But can we encourage more workplaces to sit around the table, pick a drink of choice, whether it's a soft drink or water?
Yeah, relax for a second.
Yeah, talk about what your options are rather than just assuming everybody knows, because we really don't. I mean, we only really know what we know, I guess.
Yeah, we don't know what we don't.
That's a better way to say it.
Yeah, I think it's amazing, and it's a great point. I couldn't be more excited about this spirit that Alex has brought into us today. I've seen this bottle. It's a unicorn bottle kind of for me, and I'm going to let him kind of talk about it, and we can toast up and put a bow on this episode.
So this bottle's Old Forester King Ranch edition, just like the F-150s. King Ranch you probably heard of. They did a collaboration with Old Forester where they took an Old Forester bourbon. They took wood from King Ranch property, and they filtered it through King Ranch mesquite charcoal after aging the bourbon. So this sort of has a smoky flavor, or it should anyway. Its finish should be a little smoky and charcoal and campfire and whatever else. So that's what we're enjoying today. I also think it ties in the collaboration of all the ways these plans work together and the best way to do things. So this bottle is only available in Texas, so it's made a journey up here, and now we'll enjoy it.
Absolutely. I appreciate you bringing it up. This is one that I've seen for a little while. I'm glad you bought one. I'll know exactly what I'm looking for when I can get my hands on one. So I got to go to the Old Forester distillery while I was in Kentucky.
Oh, that's right. You went on your bourbon trail
Yep.
adventures.
One of the coolest things about each and every one of those distilleries is the actual still. And it is a full-on copper still. There's two businesses that make copper, one in Oklahoma and one in Germany, I think, Germany or Scotland. And so the copper still at Old Forester is right in the middle of the gift shop, and it is an impressive sight to behold. They didn't have this pour on their menu there, so that's why it makes it more exciting for me, because I got a really pretty significant flight from them.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Air cheers.
There you go. I'll get you for
There we go. Perfect. One thing I learned when you're tasting it, and I don't want to take away from any of y'all that go out to the bourbon trail, is the first taste, you chew it. You don't swish it like mouthwash, but you chew it and get it all over your mouth, and then you feel that burn right there. That's called a Kentucky hug. Every distillery that we went to told us that that's called a Kentucky hug. Let it set for a second, and then have another sip, another smell, and another sip. Changes a little bit, doesn't it? So, great pour. Absolutely great pour. One thing I also learned, and I'll share little tidbits about that as we get into the bourbon side of things and we put the healthcare side to bed, but we went into one distillery called Michter's, and we learned how they make it. And then it's on to this other room for the tasting. And they had these big wooden tables all in a circle. And each table, there was a little dish, and each dish had one jelly bean in it. It's pretty impressive. And this can relate to healthcare. I've thought about this since the trip, how I'm going to relate this to healthcare. But we got in there, the lady said, okay, I want everybody to pick up your jelly bean. And we all picked up our jelly beans. She goes, now hold your nose where you can't let air in and out. Now eat your jelly bean. And if you're holding your nose and you eat that jelly bean, you can't taste it. And you know what she said to us after that just absolutely blew my mind? Vanilla, it was a vanilla bean, Jelly Belly jelly bean. Vanilla is not a flavor, it's a smell. You know that? Because vanilla is not a flavor, it's a smell. And I was like, oh my goodness, there's so much in healthcare that isn't what we think it is. It isn't what we think it is. We may think it is care, but it's not. It's not care. So at the end of the day, it was just pretty enlightening and pretty cool experience to eat that jelly bean. When you let go of your nose, you got the vanilla. Yeah. It came. But
I only lost my sense of smell for like a day with COVID, but it was a different experience eating food and not being able to smell. I think I was making something with cinnamon, and I realized in that second, like, I can't smell this at all.
I was sitting on my bed about to go to sleep, stopped up, and my grandpa used to always put mentholatum on me. Mm-hmm. And I grabbed the mentholatum by my bed, and I went, I wrote it under my nose, and I go, is this thing expired? Is this bad?
Does menthol go bad?
You're right. Does menthol go bad? Wow. It was absolutely crazy. So we lost our smell and taste for a little while, but I'm glad it's back. I'm glad I can really taste this bottle of whiskey. Thank you, Alex, for bringing that.
Thank you, guys.
It's awesome.
Well, that's it for this episode of Healthcare Uncut Unfiltered. We're glad you're here. We're glad you're with us. We can't wait to have you back again, and I look forward to getting together again. Thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Alex. Cheers to everybody out there.
All right. Bye, guys.